The coronavirus is no doubt a legitimate threat. But could it be that government overreach is just as much of a threat? And should cops be enforcing these orders that are coming down in their states? Let's talk about that.
You guys think you're above the law. You ain't above the line.
Cognitive dissonance and tribalism tend to rule the day, particularly on the internet. And so I can't encourage you enough as you watch this video to join me in resisting that temptation to only hear part of what I'm saying, or to not listen at all and automatically assign me to this side or that side, and instead join me in taking in information and maybe pulling it apart for a second, looking at it from an informed perspective and articulating a well-reasoned opinion or response in thought. That is actually possible, and that is what I'm encouraging us to do by having this sort of virtual conversation on the topic. I have seen some concerning things out there. I saw a police department arrest a guy in a park in Colorado. They have since apologized for that and said that they were in the wrong and had overreached. I saw a state trooper in Pennsylvania gave a woman a ticket for violating this sort of like stay-at-home type order, and this sort of thing, thankfully, even though we see it on the internet, it is still a minority of the response. In fact, most of the police departments around here in Metro Detroit, where I'm from, are all sort of like on their own version of a lockdown, where there is not supposed to be any contact with people unless it involves violence, and they have to be around them. Otherwise, personal contact is minimized. So it's this temporary policy is already in place that is contradictory to the governor's orders in our state and many others. And I think that's really important to understand, is we can't live our lives based on just because I see it on the internet, that exception means it's the rule. And I also don't think that just because we're not seeing something on the internet that it's not happening, okay? We have to think slowly and objectively through issues like this and be realistic with each other. But I do want to encourage my brothers and sisters in uniform to not go all Judge Dredd just yet.
I am the law.
A little bit of further context, because I have two concerns. Okay, this video is going to be about the concern about the constitutionality of the government response and the practicality of our government response. But before we get into that, I want to give you some context, because I am not a virologist, an epidemiologist. I'm not even a constitutional scholar, okay? But what I am is someone who has been impacted by this virus. How? I have had a police uniform on out in the public, dealing with the public during this pandemic. I know police officers, firefighters, and nurses who have tested positive for COVID-19. My family knows people who are connected to our family who have tested positive for this, ranging from mild symptoms all the way to hospitalization with some pretty serious concerns. And so the virus is real, and I am not trying to minimize in any way, shape, or form the potential threat that that virus is for spreading, the impact that it will have, already has on people in their health or any other circumstance in their life. I am not minimizing that at all. This video isn't about the reality or the dangers of the pandemic per se. It is about the government response. And as someone who has taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, I have my concerns. Sharing in my concerns about the constitutionality of the government response to all this is Judge Andrew Napolitano. Now, I came across a clip of him on a different show. I'm going to play part of that for you guys because I think he's going to be able to articulate it from a legal perspective better than I ever could. So listen to his words, and I'll be back to finish talking about that and the practical concerns that I have.
I think government is overreacting.
Okay.
I mean, as we speak, Governor Cuomo is attempting to shut down a portion of Westchester County, which is the county immediately north of New York City, and ordering the National Guard to deliver food to people's homes. What the heck are they going to deliver?
What are you talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, as I understand the law, you can't order a quarantine for mass groups. You can only order a quarantine for individuals, and you have to prove the case in a court.
Oh, wow.
You're denying the right to travel, which is a fundamental liberty under the Constitution that can only be denied with due process.
Wow.
And due process means you have to show not exposure, but active contagion, plus a refusal to stay put. and a certainty of infecting others. If you can't show that, you can't order the quarantine.
Should we kind of be self-isolating?
Yeah, but it should be self. It shouldn't be enforced by the government. We still have a constitution.
Yeah.
I mean, the government can't quarantine a building in New York City or a city block or a zip code or an area code. It can only quarantine people, human beings, who are actively visited with the disease and are contagious and who persist in exposing themselves to others. It must prove both of those to a judge before it can quarantine anybody. Now,
obviously, the glaring issue that we should all see is who gets to decide which health concern, which concern for safety or security allows our government to decide that our rights can be temporarily or permanently suspended. Not only is our right to peaceably assemble, for example, being at least restricted, if not all out suspended, but we have situations where gun shops, which would be necessary to be able to obtain a firearm to exercise your Second Amendment right, are being shut down, while simultaneously prisoners who don't feel so good are being sent out into the public. In Osceola County, Florida, they are going to require, and I believe this is happening in other places too, they were going to require a face mask to go out in public. Think about that for a second. The government requiring a particular garment to go out into the public space. A quote connected to Benjamin Franklin comes to mind, in which he says, "They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And that quote is just ringing in my mind as I look at our government response to this pandemic and think, we have given up this space. What's left to give? And how will we get it back in the future? My other concern is the practicality of all this, how it's being implemented, how it's being enforced or not enforced. And the fact is that these state executive orders that are coming down, particularly in Michigan, where I'm at, which I'm most familiar with, are inherently contradictory. In other words, they don't make sense of themselves, but yet we're beholden to follow them. Right now in the state of Michigan, I could drive across the street from my subdivision and go get liquor, but I can't go get home supplies to fix a problem on my deck. I could go to the grocery store and be around thousands of other people simultaneously in the parking lot, in the store, but I am not allowed to drive between one residence and another. At those same stores, I could get a board game or a television or a gaming system right now, but I can't get a can of paint if while I'm inside my house I wanted to paint a room. I could walk outside and mow my own lawn, but if I just kept the mower going and did my neighbor's front lawn, I'd be in violation of this order because you can't have someone else do your yard work. A local gun shop is non-essential, but McDonald's is essential. I am not suggesting that I have all the answers and that just by you watching this video, we'll all have it figured out. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that as an individual who is looking at this for themselves, which I encourage you to do, I am concerned that in light of the reality of the virus that we're facing, that our government is overreaching and that there are concerns constitutionally, there are concerns practically, that the response is inherently flawed and self-contradictory. And I think that we should be considering our current situation. How do we navigate that, retaining and valuing our freedom? And how do we protect ourselves from a reduction of rights and our freedoms in the future from similar or new situations that we may face? As an American citizen, I have my concerns, and I believe that the response, whatever it is, whatever it involves, needs to be based on the principles of liberty and not on government mandated control. What do you think? I'm sure we're gonna have some fiery comments going on down there. I'm Mike the Cop. Thanks for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing, all that other good stuff. We'll see you soon.